Good evening on a Wednesday, midweek encounter. This is Pastor Matt of Memphis Metro Church, taking an opportunity to connect with you for midweek encounter. And it's been a minute. It's been a minute since a Wednesday for me. Um, we have crossed over into a new year, 2023, and we are anticipating and extremely excited about what is forthcoming for Memphis Metro Church. I believe it's going to be an extraordinary year. But the thing that determines that is not the change in date, it's the change in mindset, it's the change in faith, it's the change in character. Dates don't change people, decisions do. Dates do not change people, decisions do. Determination does, discipline does. Those things change people, they change circumstances. And so, as you are gearing up for the new year, my hope is that you are prepared for what's forthcoming as it relates to your destiny, as it relates to your purpose and your calling. And some of the example that we set here for you tonight that we find in scripture will help you to identify some things that bring out the essence of why more is calling. That's our series for January. More is calling. And so if you're following us tonight on the Facebook platform or YouTube platform, tag somebody, share this, connect somebody to the message because they'll need to hear some of these pivotal questions and some of the answers that correlate to what more looks like in your life, how more shows up in your life. More really does need an invitation, and more needs an access point. And so many instances, we determine what that access point is when we are trying to become more, when we're trying to do more, when we're trying to have more, when we're attempting to ascend to a higher height. We determine sometimes what those access points will be. And so here's what I want to do. I want to give you some questions that more helps us to frame. And as we frame the questions, we start thinking about what it takes to search the answers out. What does it look like to be pivotal and instrumental in fleshing out what more looks like for each of us? Um, and so there's a slide here that we'll put up, and it really talks about the relationship that you have with more. The first question here says, how do you communicate with more? How do you communicate with more? If more is calling, and let's use more as if it's a proper name. If more is calling, then how do you communicate with more? How do you listen and talk to more? What can more teach you? If more is accessible to you, then what is it that more can show you and what can more teach you? The reality is that as we encounter different circumstances over the course of this new year, 2023, the temptation is always there to revert back to what you have been. And so that's not more. In general, for most of us, that's less. That's less. And we want to help you understand what more looks like, feels like, sounds like when it shows up in your life? Wouldn't it be a travesty if more was attempting to give um, more opportunity, more access, more visibility, more favor, if more was trying to give you all those things, but you didn't recognize more when you saw it? More will often be in disguise. More will sometimes look like something else. It might look like frustration, it might look like a headache, it might look like a challenge, it may look like a problem. More is often in disguise. So you got to ask yourself the question: how do you communicate with more? How do you listen and talk to more? And what can more teach you? What can more show you? There's a passage that we started examining a couple of weeks ago, and we're really doing a case study on the life of Samuel and his engagement and interaction with more. So early in the book of First Samuel, we essentially get to discover some of Samuel's backstory and how his birthing, how his life came into existence. And it was based on a prayer for more. And so his mother, Hannah, was barren and was not um, with child, struggling in a relationship. The relationship was frustrated because she couldn't produce. She was frustrated, felt like purpose had not attached itself to her. And out of the necessity for more, Hannah pursues more by going after the heart of God. She chases the heart of God. And so as a result of that, she prays, cries out, God, give me a child, give me a son, give me seed, make my womb fertile. But many of us don't feel like we've been productive, even though we have been in significant relationships. We've had significant jobs. Some of us have made significant money, but yet we still don't feel productive. Let me suggest to you that that might be because more is calling. We know what it feels like when we take ownership of something, but sometimes we don't like it when something takes ownership of us. And the moment was attempting to take ownership of Hannah until she finally recognized that she needed more. And so my hope and anticipation for each of you is that you carve out some things that you have been called to. Carve out what you've been called to. Carve out what you've been called to. In other words, identify what it's supposed to look like. Give it some characteristics and some traits. Tell yourself what it's supposed to look like. Convince yourself that you're called to it. Carve out what you've been called to. Carve it out. In other words, you got to make time for it in your calendar. If you're called to it, you got to carve out time for it. You got to carve out energy for it. You have to focus on what you are called to. That'll be a focal point. Carve out what you have been called to. And the essence of the relationship that develops behind Hannah's prayer is that she says, God, if you give me a child, I'll give him back to you. If you give me a child, I'll give him back to you. Now, here's an audacious idea. You ask God for something, not for your possession. You don't ask to own it. You ask for permission. You're testing the waters of the relationship to see if you can fully be obedient and submitted to the will of God. So God gave her fertility behind her sacrifice, productivity behind sacrifice. And so she gave God the child back after she had the child. Why? Because more was calling her. She had more in her womb. She had more to offer as a mother. She had more to demonstrate in her life. And so eventually Samuel is born. And so she gives that child back to God. And her manifestation of that, her demonstration of that is this child is raised in the temple. This child is put in the care of the priest. And the priest Eli essentially teaches him the trade of becoming a priest, teaches him how to recognize the presence of God, the move of God, the hand of God. So much to the degree that Samuel is set up to follow what it looks like is going to be a pattern, right? It looks like Samuel's going to be the next priest because he's growing up in the temple, But God had more designed for Samuel, but Samuel had to be in proximity of what was close to more. I know I'm talking to somebody tonight because some of us feel like we're in proximity of more. We've been hanging around what more looks like and feels like, but we haven't tapped into more yet. More is calling. More is calling. More is calling. And so Samuel gets disturbed as he is maturing and growing in the temple. Here's what happens. Eli speaks to Samuel and says, I didn't call you. Even though Samuel hears a voice 3 times, the voice says, Samuel, I need you to respond to me. And so God uses his voice in order for it to sound like Eli's voice so Samuel can recognize it. God will put some things in your proximity that make it feel like you already know some stuff, that you're familiar with some stuff. But there's something new underneath what feels familiar. I got some more points here I want to give to you. Elder Les kind of talked about these last week, and then I at least want to share with you a thought. And so here are those ideas here. So here it is. God is speaking directly to Samuel, but Samuel confuses the voice of God with Eli. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago. And so the challenge is that we'll sometimes choose what we are used to over what we're called to. We'll run to Eli, even though it's the voice of God. There's something deeper underneath that voice that you have heard. Second point says we choose what we are used to versus what we are designed for. What we're designed for. You gotta ask yourself the most important questions. Like, what are you designed for? What purpose do you serve? What's the DNA of your purpose? Why are you here? What we choose sometimes is the idea of going what we are used to. And some of the stuff that you're used to is not for you. Some of the stuff that you're used to is not for you. You've got to go after what you are designed for, what the plan of God was, the plan that he had in mind to create you and for you to respond to that very sense of creation. your ability. We call them tags: talents, abilities, gifts, and skills. Those things help you carve out what more looks like in your life: talents, abilities, gifts, and skills. Last point says we will go to what is familiar versus what is foreign. And so Samuel, we find him looking for more. Because Eli tells him, look, once you hear God's voice, don't run to me. Create the relationship with more. Create the relationship with more. Don't run to what you're used to. Create the relationship with more. It might feel a little uncomfortable, but create the relationship with more. More is prepared to teach you. More is prepared to expose you to some things based on your willingness to mature. Okay? More, watch this. This is a real heavy one. More is for mature people. More is for mature audiences. And when I say that, what I mean is I'm not saying that, the idea of television ratings suggests that mature audiences means that there's foul language or graphic violence or nudity. And so we've translated that for mature audiences. And the reality is that more is for mature people who have a mindset to create what their assets are. A mindset to create your assets. A mindset to push you forward to what you are designed for. So sometimes we will go to what is familiar versus what is foreign. Don't be afraid of the foreign. Don't be afraid of the foreign. I got to stop here in just a moment. And don't be afraid of the foreign. So I want to take you to this passage. And so we see in the book of 1 Samuel, we see what happens. Hannah creates a relationship with more. Then Samuel creates a relationship with more. And so Samuel starts searching out who the first king of Israel is supposed to be. And he runs into Saul, and God helps him identify that Saul is supposed to be the first king of Israel. And so Saul has to create a relationship with more. And so 1 Samuel 9:15 says, now the day before Saul came, the Lord had revealed to Samuel, tomorrow about this time, I'll send you a man from the land of Benjamin, the smallest tribe in Israel, incidentally, parenthetically, and you shall anoint him to be ruler over my people Israel. He shall save my people from the hand of the Philistines. For I have seen the suffering of my people, because their outcry has come to me. When Samuel saw Saul, the Lord told him, here's the man of whom I spoke to you. He it is who shall rule over my people. He's the one. He's the one. Verse 18 says, then Samuel approached Saul approached Samuel inside the gate and said, tell me, please, where is the house of the seer? And see, Saul was on this expedition looking for his father's donkeys. He and a servant were looking for his father's donkeys. Now, you missed it on Sunday because I had to say it in a particular way. You look at the King James English versus the New King or New Revised Standard, the language is different. But you've got to understand what Saul was doing. He was chasing a beast of burden. He was chasing a stubborn animal. He was chasing possessions and not pursuing purpose. When more is calling, you make the shift from chasing possessions to pursuing purpose. When more is calling, you make the shift from chasing possessions to pursuing purpose. And here Saul is looking for donkeys. Oh, I know some folk that have spent their time looking for donkeys. Donkey trying to get away from you. Donkey don't want to have anything to do with you. But here you are chasing it. And God is trying to set you up for an intersection where more is calling. I got to let you go. And so verse 20 says, or 19 says, Samuel answered Saul, I am the seer. Go up before me into the shrine, for today you shall eat with me. Here's the thing, man. Here's the thing. More will take you into places where you didn't know you belonged. More will take you into places that you didn't even know existed. Woo! More will take you into places where you don't think you belong. More will take you into places where you didn't know even existed. When more is calling, you got to get ready for another, not just level, dimension. Are you hearing what I'm saying? All right. So verse 20 says, ask for your donkeys, because Saul chasing donkeys. They were lost 3 days ago. Ask for your donkeys that were lost 3 days ago. Don't worry about them. They've been found. Who? See, you got to decide what it is you need to be pursuing. Let somebody else find that. Let somebody else chase that down. That's not your pursuit. That is not your pursuit. Let somebody else chase down the donkey. That's not what you're here for. I wish I had a witness. And on whom is all Israel's desire fixed, if not on you and all your ancestral house? Samuel's letting them know there's more in you because more is calling you. There's more in you because more is calling you. That's it, Jermaine. Decide on your pursuit. Choose this day. Who are you going to serve? You going to chase or you going to pursue purpose? Let me go ahead. Go to that verse 20. There we go. 21 says, now here's the response. This is how we mess it up. This is how we mess it up. This is how you mess it up. This is how I mess it up. Saul answered, I am only a Benjaminite. They're the smallest tribe in Israel. And so Saul doesn't think he belongs in the room that God has gotten ready for him. More called him into the room. And Saul says, I don't think I belong in this room. Based on my heritage, I'm from the least of the tribes of Israel, and my family is the humblest of all the families of the tribe of Benjamin. Why are you talking to me like this? What a travesty it is when you choose minimum when more has called you. I'm going to stop there. What a travesty it is when more has called you, but you choose minimum. We're going to finish this piece a little bit more on Sunday. And like I said, more sometimes comes in disguise. Sometimes we don't exactly know what to look for when it comes upon us, but you you do have to be able to see underneath the layers when more shows up. And so when more calls, choose more, even though minimum is in the background waiting. Hey, here's what I want you to do. Join us this coming Sunday, man. We got some great stuff. When I tell you, like, we got some stuff on the horizon. I can't talk about it yet, but it's coming. I know it's coming. You know why? More called me. And so I want you to make an appointment with More on this Sunday at 11:22 a.m., 258 North Merton Street in the heart of Midtown Memphis, where More will show up. More will be there to communicate with us, teach us, and show us, engage with us, encounter us to help us understand more, have access to more, move deeper into more. Once you go to the website, you can sign up, you can get connected for iMetro. It's memphismetro.tv. It's a great website. And got plenty of information there for you to get connected. memphismetro.tv. That's my time. This is P-Man. Honored to be with you tonight. Memphis Metro Church, Fellowship, Leadership, Worship. We'll see you Sunday at 11:22 a.m.